Good morning and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching us on New Year's Day, thank you so much for tuning in. It is the beginning of 2023. That's incredibly hard for me to even believe that we're there. When I think about the years like 2022, 2023, when I was a kid, that sounded like the future. It sounded like that would be something way far off. But we are here. We're very excited about where we're going this year. And so what I want to do today is a couple of things. One, I do have some devotional thoughts that I want to share with you. I want to do a little bit of a review of where we have come from over the past few years, but I want to close hopefully with some thoughts about vision and the future and where we're going and all of that. So a couple of things real quick in terms of announcements. First and foremost, we're going to be back in the building. The building's going to be back open on January 8th. All three services, our 8 o'clock chapel service, our 10 o'clock sanctuary service, and our 11:15 table service. So all of those will be back ready to go on January 8th. We're looking forward to seeing you back as well. If you need anything, we are back in the office tomorrow. So January 2nd, everyone is back. Teresa will be back in on January 3rd, but for the most part, everything is back open this week. So if there's anything you need, anything that we can help you with, you could still just call the church office, which is 330-875-2677. If no one answers, you can choose who you want that to go to, and that will, if you need to get a hold of me or anybody else, we can answer those questions. Or you can send us an email. You can send that directly to me, David@paradisechurch.org. In terms of giving, if there's anything you'd like to give, starting off the new year today, we would appreciate anything that you are able to do just to sort of start us off on the right foot, start you off on the right foot. You can visit our website, which is paradisechurch.org, and there's an easy way to give right there on the website. And we're also encouraging, as many of you are interested, to move towards the online giving. You can set it up to be something that is done automatically, or it can be something that you choose to do each and every week, but it makes it probably a whole lot easier on you, a little bit easier on us as well. So if you are able to do that, we would appreciate that, but just keep that in mind. Our reading this morning comes from Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. They committed themselves to the teaching of the apostles, the life together, the common meal, and the prayers. Everyone around was in awe. All those wonders and signs done through the apostles. And all the believers lived in a wonderful harmony, holding everything in common. They sold whatever they owned and pooled their resources so that each person's need was met. They followed a daily discipline of worship in the temple, followed by meals at home, every meal a celebration, exuberant and joyful. And they praised God. People in general liked what they saw. Every day their number grew as God added to those who were saved. Let's pray. God, we do thank you for this morning. We thank you for what you have in store for us this coming year. We thank you for everything that we were able to see in 2022. And we're excited about where you're going to take us in this new year as well. Now, we know that the new year it's a holiday, and it is more than just a resolution that we want to make or try to do new and better habits. We want you to do something new and different in us. So we're praying for big things. We're praying for bold things. We're praying for things that will challenge us. We're praying for the strength to be able to respond. And all this we pray in your name. Amen. If you've ever been on a construction site, there are signs that are usually posted on the fence or the poles or things like that. They will say, "Caution, enter at your own risk." And the idea is that you're about to do something that is a little bit dangerous. Or not necessarily life-risking, but you should just take caution that it's going to be a little bit different than anything else that you're going to experience that day. And the idea for us here at Paradise is that we've been in a construction site for a very long time. And I'm about to review all the things that we have done over the past few years. And what I'm interested in is not necessarily the caution because there's something that could fall from the ceiling or something that has scaffolding or new paint on it or anything like that. What the risk is, the caution that I'm interested in, is the fact that there is something different that God's going to do. There is something perhaps a little bit risky or a little bit dangerous for us to get involved in. And one of the ideas that I have been wrestling with is that when you see the caution sign is something that you need to think about. And that's really what I do want us to think about as we go into the new year. What is it that's new? What is it that God is trying to do with us in a different way? I do not want anyone to come back into this building in January and just pick up where we left off. Even all the good things. I want us to really think through what is it that we want to look different, feel different, and to be different this year. So real quick, I want to take you on a quick field trip and show you all the cool things that we have done over the last few years. But then when we come back, I want to sort of tie some of that in. This was one of the first projects that we did once I got here. I started on January 1st of 2017, so this is actually my anniversary day to be able to celebrate that with you. But this was one of the first things that we did when I got here is that this porch had a lot of issues to it. There was a wall that extended this way, but most of the problem was the porch was leaking, and there was all this water that was going down into the basement parts of the church. And so we took that wall down, put up this new rail system just to sort of open it up a little bit to make it look better. And so this was, the funny story was the moment I started, I was told that we were in a capital campaign. And that was a little odd. I was like, oh my gosh, I just started at this church and we're already in a capital campaign. Someone told me, I forgot who it was, that told me, and they said, well, we wanted you to think we were busy doing something. And so we went ahead and got started. Oh my goodness. So the moment I started, I've been in a capital campaign. I've been in a capital campaign or a building project since the day I started. That was 6 years in that kind of thing. So I'm very glad that it's over. But this is a beautiful entrance. We love this. Every time we have a wedding, every time we have an event, it's just a beautiful way for people to see the church. And so I'm glad it's done. But if you have not been out here and seen it all, you should come out here and visit it. One of the small projects that we did was the refurbishing of this room. This is right outside of the sanctuary, and we put in, part of the sanctuary projects, we put in 2 doors. There used to be just 1 door here, and it was always sort of a burden. There was a drop-off where it was hard for wheelchair access or funerals, things like that. So we put in the 2 doors, but we also wanted to make this space a little more inviting. So there were a few older mid-century couches in here that have gone somewhere. But we wanted to just make this a more inviting room. And there's actually people who use this room as a meeting space. We have our coffee bar that people make use of in the morning. And so we just wanted to do something with this. We put everything up on the walls and just wanted to really make this space more inviting. One of the obvious spots on our field trip is the sanctuary. And if you watch us online or you've been here, it's almost become old hat that we're just in the sanctuary, but we're still enjoying the newness of it. The project for the sanctuary was we redid the stage. We had the stairs that were going up. Of course, we redid the carpet. The pews, we had the pews sort of set at an angle, and took some of the pews out to put a little more space in here. The railing system, it was really the railing and the balcony that pushed us. That it was the balconies that were falling, that were failing, and there were cracks, and we had to go through that process of basically redoing all of the underside of the balcony. And so once we got into that process where we had to redo that, we just started adding everything else on to redo that. So the lights, we did all the fixtures to make it brighter in here. It's just a warmer feeling in this room. So I just love it. It's such a transformation from what it was before. And so we thank you for your help in helping us get this part done as well. So as many of you know, a big emphasis of 2020 was the repair of the bell tower. And you may not have even been in here in a long time. Before we started working, the walls were all peeling and cracking, and all this was in trouble. And when you go up into the bell tower, we were finding a number of problems. The biggest problem is the pointing of the bricks was starting to fail. That we were starting to get cracks, we were starting to get leaks. When it would rain, we'd have storms, this whole room would fill up with water and all of that. And so we entered into a huge campaign to restore this tower. And so I'm very excited to be able to report we're almost done. We're almost completed with that. In here, we're gonna have, the carpet is gonna be replaced in a few weeks. We're almost done with the walls. But the bell is working, and so most of you have heard that, but it's so cool. We have a little app on our phone that allows us to do all kinds of things, but I'm going to play real quick for you the bell so you can hear it. And we haven't heard this for a long time, so. That's super exciting. And even all the process of me doing that painful marathon in October, Biker Bob doing all of his fundraising throughout the summer, just to be able to get to that kind of conclusion for 2022 was very, very exciting. So all the scaffolding up here, we are working on a few things. We're trying to get the skylight resealed. There were a number of leaks on the outside of the roof and on the inside of the roof that we've had to redo. And we're also replacing all of the lighting in here and the lighting in here, putting in LED bulbs just to make it a little bit cheaper every time you turn on lights in this part of the building. In fact, one of the things that we have been working on this whole entire year is, thanks to people like Wally and Don Walker and a number of others, we have almost changed out all the bulbs in the building. At least most of the Kid Watch building has been done. Most of the hallways, we're trying to turn all of it into LED lighting, just again, to try to keep our costs down, to keep our electric bill down, all of that. Next time. We're in the Fellowship Hall, and this is probably one of the biggest projects that we did. When I first got here, the room was obviously the same size, but there was a lot of work that needed to be done. The carpet, we had carpet that really extended the whole way, and we knew that we wanted some kind of hard surface for like a dance floor, but also for food service. And so we extended this tile all the way down this side of the room, just to make it a little bit easier when we're doing meals and events. We're actually prepped for an event here. And what was up here on the stage was the orange curtains. I don't know if any of you remember the orange curtains. They've gone for a long time, but we added in black curtains, black background, redid the stage flooring, put in flat screens for our contemporary service, a new sound system, all of that. A little behind the scenes. This isn't necessarily the most exciting thing, but if you've ever been to our contemporary service, our 11:15 service, the table, There's a lot that goes on behind, and so we had this. This was actually from a local library. They were getting rid of it, and so we brought it in and turned it into sort of command central for our musicians. And so this is the back of the contemporary service, and so this whole space has really been transformed. That was one of the biggest things that we wanted to do, is we wanted to add a contemporary service, which we did back in 2017, and we're enjoying it. If you've never been to the 11:15 service, you're more than welcome to come. We would love to see you. But this is where my lovely wife sits every Sunday. She's in this chair along with whoever else is volunteering to make sure that everything happens for the 11:15 service. All right, I'm in the kitchen. This is absolutely the last place that I need to be. I have no business being in here, other than to say we've done a lot of work in this room. We have new ovens. We have a new dishwasher. We just put in a new disposal. And across the hall, we have new freezers and all that. We've really had to come through, and piece by piece, we've had to really upgrade this space. And so this isn't maybe the most exciting thing for us to think about, but this is the heart and soul of everything that we do when it comes to a meal, when it comes to a dinner, when it comes to a wedding or a banquet, or the things that we host each and every week, like Rotary. We need all of this to happen or to work to make sure that we continue to do the things that people look to us for. There are a lot of events that people just assume they're going to be at Paradise each and every year. And so coming through here and making sure that Sharon and the kitchen staff, they have everything that they need, everything updated and working, that is an incredibly important thing for us to make sure. One of the things that we talked about in 2019 versus going into 2020, there was a leadership restructure conversation that we were having. But we also wanted to have a very intentional conversation about what it looked like for each person to attend here. And there was a sort of a clunky phrase that we came up with, and it was called the minimal viable involvement. Minimal viable involvement, or MVI for short. And my guess is you've probably not even heard of that. For those of you who remember, we went through all of the restructure conversations. It was in there, but we didn't really get a whole lot of time to really put this in place. So, but the minimal viable involvement comes down to 5 important areas, or 5 important things that we want to see in the MVI. And so the first one is worship attendance. Worship attendance, and we use the word experience. Okay? That we do want to emphasize attendance. We honor everybody who's a member and everybody who is a part of the community, but attendance is crucial. It is a very important thing, not just for us to see you here, but for you to experience God. There is an important part of that. So we use that word experience for that. The other one is the idea of a small group, and we're going to spend some time over the next few weeks, again, sort of rolling that out, talking about that idea. And the word we've been using for that is the word connect. That we want you to be a part of the service on Sunday, but we also want you to be a part of a group on a regular basis. And the third one is giving, or we use the word invest. And the emphasis this year is going to be giving just on a regular basis. The idea of tithes, the idea of offerings, that we want to back away from what we call event giving or project giving, that I'm going to only give to this project, or I'm going to only give to this thing. That no, we want to promote the idea of simply giving on a regular basis to your local church. That has very little to do with what we need. It has very little to do with our budget or any fundraiser. We're not trying to raise money for anything. That giving is about you and your discipleship. That you recognize that you have been given resources, you have been blessed with resources, and it is a part of your calling and your belief in what the purpose for God has for you to have giving be a part of that. Even to the point where there's going to be things we're going to encourage you to give that have nothing to do with us, that have nothing to do with the church. That giving is an important part of your life in worship with God. The fourth one is community involvement. And we're going to go very hard on this. This is going to be a huge emphasis. We're going to talk about this over and over and over again. And the word we use for that is reach. That we are going to do outreach. Just in that word alone, just the idea of going out. There's not a whole lot of in-reach that we're going to do. It's going to be a lot of outreach. We're going to build new bridges, new relationships with those around us. And so our community involvement is going to increase. And then I would say one of the shining spots that I want to celebrate, not really say, well, we need to improve upon this or anything like that, is our evangelism and missions. And we use the word go for that. We have, I would say this is one of the things that is really impressive about what we do here at Paradise. We're going to simply continue that and move that to the center stage, not just sort of as a side thing that we're doing, but it's an incredible emphasis on the things that we do. So the 5 words are experience, connect, invest, reach, and go. And to do these 5 words is to fulfill the idea of intersecting faith in real life. That's what we want people to see when they look through this window. We want people to see an active community, not just something that is sort of here, that is just going through the motions, but they want to see an active, living, worshiping, fellowshipping community. And not only when people look through this window, but when we look out the window into the community, we see all the things that are around us. We don't have to travel far to recognize there are people who are in need. We want to be able to reach them. And so over the next few weeks, over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be going through each of these 5 words to really emphasize what exactly does it mean, what exactly these concepts point to, and we encourage you to be here for all 5 of those weeks as we teach and learn a little bit about what God is calling us to do. As I said earlier, I was thinking that someone should have put on my Bible that sticker that says, read at your own risk. And in particular, this past year, I've been reading some things, and I've been trying to apply some things for a very long time. Anytime you pick up the Bible, there's going to be something that challenges you, something that pushes you, something that makes you rethink or reorient. But especially this year, at least in terms of 2022, there have been some awful things that have come to light. Now, when I use the word awful, it's sort of a play on words. I use the word AWE in terms of awe. There have been some full of awe things that I have seen in the scriptures. We started off 2022 going through Luke, we've been going through the book of Acts, and we sort of spent a lot of our time in that area. And there were a lot of things that challenged us as a congregation, but also challenged me on a personal level. And so I saw some things that I just stood in awe and looked at. But I also took that in combination with the fact that we have seen some awful things in the past few months. I would say the past 3 months. There have been some things that make me wonder, are we going in the right direction? Are we doing what we really need to do? Is there anything that we need to do to change? So when we look at this passage in Acts chapter 2, one of the first things it should do, it should convict us. That when we look at what our community is, and when we hold up our church or any church to the light of what we see in Acts chapter 2, there should be some things that immediately jump off the list. And there's questions, can a church in the 21st century really look like that? Can we really do that? I mean, do we have to sell all our stuff and move into a commune? No, there's nothing like that. But when you look at what it says in Acts chapter 2, there are some things that we could pay attention to. There was a certain attitude that the people had towards each other. There was a certain attitude that people had towards their possessions and how important the things they owned were versus the things that they could do with their resources. They had a general attitude of what they were excited about in worship. They had a general attitude towards the opportunity to serve each other and to serve those outside of the community. They had a sense of worship where they expected something to happen. And all those were really important ideas. Now, Paradise Church, I mean, we are a church that we're not very unique. Okay, I would love to think we're a very special church, and we are in many respects. There's only one Paradise Church. But there are a number of churches that are sort of going through the very same things that we are. They're asking the same questions. There are a number of pastors just like me who are going through the same process, coming out of COVID, coming out of the year 2020, and recognizing that so much has changed, that there are so many faces that used to be in their sanctuaries that aren't there anymore. And there's so many questions now of how do we do it, and what should we change, what should we leave the same. And so there's a yearn for growth and new initiative, and there's another push to return to tradition and the things that we know that are familiar with all the change that is going on in our world. But all of it has sort of pushed me into a few different things that I need to recognize. So again, Paradise Church, it's not a bad church. It does not have bad people. We don't have bad doctrine. In a word, this church really over the last six years, the thing that sort of comes to my mind is that we have been in a lot of maintenance and building. We've been in a lot of maintenance projects and a lot of building projects. And the question that I'm wrestling with is, what are we building for? What are we building for? Are we building a museum? Or are we building a community center? Are we building a church? And there's really two different ways to look at it. One of the things that's important to me is that I want the services here at this church, I want them to be events. I want you to look forward to it, whether you're watching us online or whether you're coming to be a part of one of our 3 services. I want you to see the service each week as an event. One of the things that I'm pushing for myself and for Pastor Scott as he comes on in 2023, I want our messages to be relevant. I want our messages to be powerful. I want our messages to not only have something that you learn, but it's also a drive for us to do something with it as well. Our relationships in the congregation, they need to be deep. They need to be vulnerable. They're not just things that show up on Sunday, but there's actual friendships. There's a sense of people getting together throughout the week and being a part of each other's lives. I want our sacraments to be lifelines. I want them to be things that we get excited about. I want us to be excited about communion. I want us to wonder about questions like how many people did we baptize in 2022, and how many more are we going to baptize in 2023? That those are some of the things that we evaluate in terms of how are we doing in our mission. That we're actually looking for results, and we're looking for things that we can measure to say, how far have we come and how far do we still need to go? We want there to be a sense that God is moving here. And it's not something we can just sort of contrive or make up, but we're really going to be seeking for God to do something in our lives. One of the things that I am very tuned into is the idea that we need to care for the poor. We need to care for the poor in our community. We need to see life change. We need to see radical reconciliations. We need landmark confessions, miracles, answers to prayer. Not just things that we do on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis just because of tradition. We want this church to be exciting. We want this church to be captivating, charging us all up to live a life that is relevant, and we are in pursuit of what God wants to do in our lives. So the question that you wrestle with, and when you look at the second chapter of Acts, the question that we wrestle with, at least I wrestle with, what is God up to these days? And there are times when you read the Bible, there's times where you read the New Testament, and it's a wonder. You can look back and say, oh my goodness, it was so amazing, the things that God did back then. But the question for us is, what is God up to these days? What is God up to today? What is Jesus up to these days? I mean, he ascended, he's with the Father, and we just celebrated Christmas and all of that. But what is Jesus' job description until his return? What is Jesus' number one priority? And he tells us in the New Testament, he tells us in Matthew chapter 16, when he is speaking to Peter, his priority is the establishment and development of biblically functioning communities, or a fancy way of saying churches. That Jesus is in the business of building the church. Not in the reconstruction business of a building. He's not in the process of buying land or doing renovations. He is in the process of building communities. That he is giving birth to new communities, and he is bringing revival and restoration to well-established communities. That is what Jesus is up to. There's so many things that we want to see God fix in our world. There's so many things that we think that are broken. We look around us and we wonder and we question, God, are you ever going to do anything about this situation or that situation? And the reality is that the answer is yes. But the second part of that answer is he's going to do it through the local church. So when people experience life in our local communities, when they experience life in one of these biblically functioning communities, they're going to begin to orient their lives around this calling and this purpose. Our purpose here at this church is not to just preserve ourselves. Our purpose here is not to simply make sure that the walls stay up and the roof stays up and the lights stay on and everything stays up to date. No, our purpose is to reach the world around us. Our purpose here is to reach the community around us. And so one of the first things that starts with the idea of teaching. And so throughout this next year, our teaching is going to focus on life change. Now, I love the Bible. I love teaching. If any of you have ever come to our Tuesday morning Bible study or been a part of any of our small groups, I love it. I have all kinds of Bible trivia in my head. I can tell you all kinds of things about the culture of the first century and what it was like to live in Palestine and all those things. All those things are wonderful. But at the end of the day, I am not going to just deposit knowledge into people. There's going to be teaching, and there's all kinds of those kinds of approaches. But the main thing is that we want to teach towards life change. We want to make sure that the things that we're saying can be turned into something practical that you could put into place the following day or the following week or for the rest of your life. The other thing that's interesting when you look at Acts chapter 2 is the idea of fellowship. And I really do want to spend some time looking at the idea of fellowship. We have tried a number of times to start and to get small groups going, to get fellowship groups going. And COVID and again, 2022 has just thrown a number of challenges at us. But we're not going to give up on that initiative. We really do want to make that a focus, is that there is something powerful that happens in the sanctuary, but there is something more powerful that can take place when small groups of believers get together. And so we really do want to make sure that this is a focus for us. That it's not just spending time again on the building, but we are spending time on building the lives of the individuals who come here. The idea of fellowship, this is what we were created to be a part of. We are a part of a fellowship. And it is not just something that shows up again on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, but it is something that should be part of our everyday life. The Bible, when it describes these biblically functioning communities, they are transformational. In my life and the times that I can remember, when I really saw life change happen, it was usually not in a big service. It was usually not on a Sunday morning. It was usually in someone's home or meeting with a few individuals over coffee or something like that, where my growth as a believer, my discipleship really took place in places outside of Sunday morning. So in a biblically functioning community, our sacraments, they'll be spiritual building activities, communion, prayer, baptism. And all of this is going to lead us on this path that is going to force us to say, what are we doing to reach out to those outside of the fellowship? And so we really do want to make sure that we're hitting it all on what we, 8 cylinders. We're trying to do everything we can to bring substance to everyone who attends here, but all those in the community that surrounds us. So in a biblically functioning community, there's an enormous unity based on one idea, unity of purpose. And so we're going to do everything we can, really, we're going to start in January, but everything we can to make sure we clarify what is our purpose. And one of the things that's been a burden for me is that I've had conversations really in the last few weeks of December, conversations where it is apparent to me we do not know why we're here. We don't know why we're here. There are those who think we're just here for the building. We're just here for self-preservation. We are here just to maintain and take care of this property. But the reality is that there is a reason our address is 619 East Main Street. There's a reason that we're here. And there's a reason why the churches in other parts of town are there. They're there for a reason. There's a reason that we're here in Louisville, Ohio, and we're not in California, we're not in Texas, we're not in Florida, we're not in New York. There's a reason that God has us here. And the purpose is for us to minister to those around us. So, in Philippians 1, 27 to 28, it says, "Meanwhile, live in such a way that you are a credit to the message of Christ. Let nothing in your conduct hang on whether I come or not." Paul speaking. "Your conduct must be the same, whether I show up to see things for myself or hear them from a distance. Stand united, singular in vision, contending for people's trust in the message, the good news, not flinching or dodging in the slightest before the opposition. Your courage and unity will show them what they're up against. Defeat for them, victory for you, and both because of God." So when we become a Christian, God gives us a divine capability, a special talent, if you will. And he gives it to us for the purpose that you would bring your talent, your skill, your calling to the ministry of the local church. I cannot do all of this on my own. And as much as we're excited about bringing Pastor Scott Carney on, he cannot do it all on his own. There's no staff member here at the church that can do any of this all on their own. There is a singular purpose, though, that we are called to, and we need the church to do it together with us. So there's not really a sense, well, the pastor will do it, or the staff, or the leadership, or anything like that. There are certain things that we can do. And there are certain things that only I can do. There's only certain things that you can do. But all of that comes together for one incredible purpose. The idea that I really want us to focus on in terms of the life before us is that most people do want to participate in it. Is that when God gives life to a church, most people want to be a part of it. Most people don't want to go to a place that is dry or just stuck in a rut or anything like that, or it's the same old, same old. Most people want to be drawn into something that is exciting. If I say to anything, hey, there's something exciting going on down the street, you may not even know what I'm talking about, but at least we sort of turn our head a little bit to say, hey, what is it that is going on? But the Bible, when it talks about these biblically functioning communities, they're operating on the idea of purpose. They're operating on the idea that they are doing something that they are called to do. So, when it comes to the idea of worship, one of the other things that we're going to be focusing on is we want to try to be creative. We're going to try to be creative in all three of our services. We want to worship with integrity, but we also want to worship with creativity. We want you to look forward to what we're doing. We want you to come and say, what are they going to do? What are we going to do this weekend? Not in sort of a weird entertainment level. We're not here to tell jokes or anything like that. I try sometimes. Okay? But it is, we want to be creative. We want you to feel like you have experienced God on some level when you come. But all of this is to sort of try to regain some of the things that we were talking about back in 2020. And it was a very interesting season when we came out of 2019. We spent a lot of time in 2019. Those of you who are longtime members of this church, you recognize a few things. One, in 2019, we went through a leadership restructure. And we talked about leadership, and we sort of changed how the committees run, and we called them teams instead of committees, and we set up a different sort of governance over the church. And all of that was very good and very exciting. But the reality for a lot of us, we didn't really get a full grasp of it because of the shutdowns of 2020 and everything that sort of happened in that season. There are still some folks, even as we go into 2023, that really don't understand what is it that we did in 2020. As I'm going into my 7th year, and that's hard for me to even comprehend that. It still feels like I just started here a few months ago. But as I go into my 7th year, and I look back, there's a number of things that I marvel at. We have done a lot of work on the building. As we showed you earlier, there are so many areas of the building that we have either repaired, we've fixed, and we celebrate that. And I thank each of you who had a part of that, who had a role in that, who had sacrificial giving towards that. Again, we did the front steps. We did all the exterior trim around the rose window. We renovated the fellowship hall. All of the HVAC units have been replaced or repaired. The parking lot, we resealed it a couple years ago. We set up our third service, our table service. We had to invest a lot into the technology that allows us to live stream. If you're all watching us online, there's just a process that we had to go through to get to that. We redid, of course, the sanctuary, the bell tower, the skylight, as you saw, the scaffolding that was out there. And we're excited about even some of the things that are coming through Kid Watch over the next few months. We're excited about all of that. And again, the idea is not just the purpose of the church to maintain the building. Okay, our purpose is not to just make sure this building is repaired. Our purpose, our calling, is based on two important concepts. The first one is the Great Commission, and the second one is the Great Commandment. The Great Commission is found in Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 through 20. Go to the people of all the nations and make them my disciples. Baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to do everything I have told you. I will be with you always, even until the end of the world. And the second one is the Great Commandment. Matthew 26, verses 36 through 40. Teacher, what is the most important commandment in the law? Jesus answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. This is the first and most important commandment. The second most important commandment is like this one, and it is love others as much as you love yourself. All the law of Moses and the books of the prophets are based on these two commandments. So both of those ideas are things that are not just for me, they're not just for clergy, they're not just for staff, they're not just for those who are in leadership. Those are the things that we are all called to do as believers. And so the question that I want all of us to wrestle with this morning is, how are you participating in each of those? How are you participating in the call of the Great Commission? And how are you participating in the call of the Great Commandment? Are you going out? Are you bringing this message to those who have never heard it? And are you loving others as much as you love yourself? And if we understand that purpose, the purpose of the church, if you understand that is the purpose of the church, the global church, that is the purpose of the church. And if we can understand that, then it helps us to clarify what the purpose is for our local church. So the purpose of the church is to have a great commitment to the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. In essence, the church has been left on earth to make disciples of Jesus Christ, and as a result, bring glory to God. That's why we're here. That is why we're here. That is why we are here. And the other thing that's very exciting is that God has a specific plan for each local assembly, rooted in their culture, their time and history, their spiritual gifts, those that are present at that time, and the needs of the community. So let me read that again. God has a specific plan for each local assembly, rooted in their culture, their time and history, the spiritual gifts of those who are present, and the needs of their community. All of that is incredibly important to understand, is that God has a plan for us. And the longer we go without doing that plan, the closer we get to the end of our story. If you've ever worried about the future of Paradise Church, the future of Paradise Church has really two directions. One, it is where we are fulfilling what God has called us to do, or two, where we are looking at a very dark and bleak story because we failed to do the things that we were asked to do. So again, there is a plan for the local church, but there is a specific plan for Paradise Church. And over the next few weeks, we're going to walk through in the month of January. We're going to invite you to be back here on January 8th. We're going to walk you through for the next 5 weeks what exactly that plan looks like. And we want to make sure we define or redefine or re-talk about the ideas of vision and calling and what exactly we are supposed to be doing. So it is my invitation for you. It's my invitation for you to not just come back on the 23rd. Okay? And that sounds superficial. We just want you in attendance, and the more people we have here, the better. All of that aside, we want you to come here ready to engage in what God is calling us to do. For you to engage in what God is calling us to do. For you to recognize there is a purpose here. That as much as I have enjoyed all the construction that we have done over the past 6 years, what I'm really excited about is in 2023, we're not going to do any of it. We're not going to do any more construction, at least I know of, unless some emergency happens. We're not doing a fundraiser that's going to raise money for this construction project or that construction project. Our goal for 2023 is ministry. Our goal is fellowship. Our goal is worship. Our goal is teaching that promotes all of that. Our goal is to understand the purpose that God has called us to be a part of. And we're going to engage that without distraction. We're going to engage that without all the other concerns that are around us. We are going to take off the construction hat and we are going to put on the apron of service. And we're going to find a way to make that happen in 2023. So we look forward to seeing you on January 8th. We look forward to all the good things that God has for us this year. And I would encourage you, get some rest because we're about to get really, really busy. And I'm really excited about where we're going. Let's pray. God, you do have some powerful things for us. You have some important things for us to think about and to recognize. God, we do want to see good and mighty and powerful things happen in the life of this church. And we're excited about all of them. But God, we recognize there are some things that are going to take us outside of these walls. We thank you for all that has happened to make this building stronger, to make this building a firm foundation. But it would be a launch pad and not just a place of not just a museum, but it gives us the opportunity to go out and to do the things that we are called to do. So God, we give this year to you. We consecrate it. We dedicate it to you. May you give us the strength and courage to follow through with the calling that you've placed on each and every believer.